Hey, it's Nate Savage here with a quick guitar lesson for you on how to read tablature or tab. I get emails all the time asking me, Nate, I'm new to guitar, I don't know how to read tab, or I don't know what this particular element of tab is telling me to do, right? If that's you, if tab has been a mystery for you, this lesson is going to be great. What I'm going to do is go over just the basics of how tab works and is laid out, and then I'm going to go over some of the more common elements you're going to see in tab. That way, when you want to pull up some tab to learn a song or a solo, you'll be ready to go. Tab or tablature is basically an alternative to traditional sheet music or standard notation. It's basically just a graphical representation of where to put your fingers on the guitar strings in order to play a certain solo, lick, melody, or musical idea. Let's go over the basic layout of tablature. If you look at a standard piece of tablature, you're probably going to see some standard notation at the top, the 5 lines and 4 spaces of standard sheet music, right? You can ignore that. Below that, you're going to see 6 lines. Those 6 lines represent the 6 strings of the guitar. The top line represents the high E string, and this can be kind of counterintuitive. So remember, the top line that you're seeing there is the high E, or the thinnest string there. And the bottom string that you're seeing there is your low E string. So top line is the high E string. Next one down is the B. Next one down is the G. Next one down is the D, A, and again, the bottom one is the low E string. Now, when you read tab, you get to read it from left to right, just like you normally would if you were reading, words on a page. So it goes through time. You start with whatever's on the left and move your way to the right. That's really fundamental, but this is something that you need to know. When you look at tab and you're trying to figure out a solo or a song, you're going to see numbers all over the strings of the guitar. And those numbers are just telling you where to put your fingers. You're going to see these in 2 basic fashions. You're going to see numbers by themselves, kind of sequentially, and then you're going to see numbers stacked on top of each other. Let's go over the individual numbers first. So if I was here looking at some tab and I saw a 1 on the 2nd string down on the tab, that would mean to play the 1st fret of the B string of the 2nd string down, right? So you would have this. A couple more examples for you, just so you get used to doing this. If you saw a 0 on the high E string on the top line, you would just play that high E string open. And again, if you saw a 1 on that same line, you would play the 1st fret. So that's how you read single notes on tab. Now, you're going to see numbers stacked up with each other. When you see that, you're probably going to be looking at a chord of some kind. So just for this example, let's look at what a C chord would look like. You would have a 3 on the 2nd to lowest string right there. So that's telling you to play the 3rd fret of the 5th string right there, or the A string. You would have a 2 on the next line up. It's telling you to play the 2nd fret of the D. The G string, 3rd from the top, would be open, so you'd have a 0 on it. First finger would be on the 1st fret of the B string right there, because you have a 1 on that B, and then the high E string has a 0 on it, so you'd play that open too, and that would be a C chord. So whenever you see numbers stacked like that, odds are you're looking at a chord. You'll get faster at this at interpreting what chords are and start to recognize specific ones right away. Now that you're familiar with the basic layout of tablature and how it kind of works as far as getting your fingers on the frets, I want to go over some of the more common elements that you're going to see in tab. These aren't by any means all the elements that you're going to see, but I'm going to introduce you to some of the more common ones, and that'll help you start to be able to interpret all of these things you're going to see in tab kind of intuitively. The first element of tab I want to go over with you is palm muting. And if you've never palm muted before, it's basically when you take the fleshy part of your hand right here on your picking hand and rest it on the strings right as they take off of the bridge, just to mute the strings a little bit. And if you look at the example, it has the low E string played open with some palm muting. And you can tell that because it has P dot M dot and then some dashes telling you how long to palm mute that note for, or how many notes to do that. The next little element I want to look at with you is called a dead note, and that's basically when you mute a note. You can use your palm to completely mute it, or you can use your left hand too. But it basically just looks like an X over that string, right? So you would mute that string completely and play it like that. Now let's go over some bends that you're going to see on tablature. Now if you don't know what a bend is, it's basically when you just take one of the strings on the guitar with your fingers, play it, and bend it up. And you can tell that, like for example, that 3rd fret of the B string right there. If you play that note, and if you see an arrow next to that note, that's bent up and it says full, you're going to bend that note up one whole step or 2 frets. That's the note you're shooting for. Along those same lines, if the little arrow has a little half, like fraction next to it, you're only going to bend that note up a half step, right? So just 1 fret. So that's the note you'd be shooting for. Another common type of bend that you're going to see on the guitar is what I call a bend and release. So if you have that same kind of full step bend notated next to a fret number, you're going to see it's going to tell you to bend it up and then let it down. And that's what that means. So bend and release. Same thing goes for a half step. You can have a half step bend and then release it too. Sliding is another common element that you're going to see in a lot of solos and licks and stuff like that. So I wanted to let you know what sliding looks like. Put your third finger on the 3rd fret of the B string. You can see that number 3 on the 2nd line down. Play that note, and then you're going to see a slash to the number 5. That's telling you to slide that note from the 3rd fret to the 5th fret. So play that note, and then slide up. And you can do the same thing, only sliding down too. So you can start on the 5th fret, and then you're going to see a slash down to the 3, right? So that's sliding down from the 5th fret to the 3rd fret. Hammer-ons and pull-offs are an extremely common element that you're going to be using in solos, rhythm ideas, all this kind of stuff. So you want to be familiar with what that looks like in tab. Normally, if you were to play 2 consecutive notes, like the 3rd and the 5th fret of the G string, you would have the 3rd and then the 5th, right? Now, if you wanted to play that with a hammer-on or a pull-off, you would see a slur over those 2 notes, which is telling you to play that more legato without picking every single note. In this case, it'd be a hammer-on from the 3rd to the 5th fret, and then a pull-off back to the 3rd fret. So just keep an eye out for that. You're going to see a lot of legato or hammer-ons and pull-offs as you go through tab. The next element that I want to go over with you is vibrato. Let's go to the 5th fret of the G string, and if you pick that note and play it, you can tell you're supposed to use vibrato on it if you see a little squiggly line over the top of that note. So play that note, and just kind of bend it up and down to give it some really nice vibrato, right? And you can have like thinner vibrato out there, not quite so wide. Or you can have really extreme vibrato. And you can tell that by how dark or bold the vibrato line is over that note. The last elements I want to go over with you as far as tab goes are downstrokes and upstrokes. If you had a little 4-note phrase here, maybe on the 3rd and 5th frets of the low A string right there, and then the 2nd and 3rd frets of the D string, the composer or whoever wrote the music or tabbed the music out may have some specific picking patterns for you to follow. So you need to know what downstroke and upstroke indicators look like. Downstroke indicators look like a little upside down U that's kind of blocked off, and upstroke indicators look like a little down pointing arrow. So in the case of our example, you would see a downstroke indicator for this first note, an upstroke for the next one, hop over to the next string, play 2 and 3, and play down, up. So down, up, down, up. So those are some of the more common elements that you're going to be seeing when you actually go to read tab. One good exercise for you to do is to just pick a tab that you want to learn, take a look at all the elements in them, see if you recognize the ones we went over, and try to find some new ones, see if you can find some that you don't really know yet, but you can kind of intuitively figure out for yourself, just to get more familiar with tab. This may be slow going for you at first, and that's normal, don't worry about that. The more you read tab and the more you're exposed to it, the better you'll get at it, and the faster you'll get at it too. Thanks for watching this video. If you have any questions or comments, or if you'd like to see more lessons like this, just click the like button below the video, or you can leave a comment too. I just launched a brand new guitar lesson series that you can get right now for free. Just go to guitarsystem.com/free-series, and I'll see you there.